The Netflix receiver show is out. And did it just reveal a major weakness in the 49ers offense and Kyle Shanahan? We'll talk about it next. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network and the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Grant Cohn. Grant, happy Wednesday.
How you doing, man? I like when you see a fight and there's like old fighters there and like, oh, in attendance is Evander Holyfield. And he'll be like, you know what I mean? Every time with the fist. So I'm doing fists today.
Solid.
Yeah.
No one's bit your ear off, have they?
No, not today, but it's early.
All right. So I have been diving into the Netflix show Receiver. It's out. I'm desperate for 49ers news. And I'm like 3 episodes in, and few things jumped out at me. The first one I know you're going to pounce all over. And it has to do with when Deebo Samuel got hurt against the Browns. He gets hurt early in that game. And first of all, like just hearing him describe the injury was fascinating. Basically, he says his arm is just dead. Like he can't lift his arm. It's just like it is not functioning and it's killing him to the point where they go in the back in the locker room and he's like, I don't know how I'm going to get my pads off. Like his arm is just, there's nothing there. And they obviously go on to lose the game. Afterwards, George Kittle says, when Deebo goes down, that's like half the playbook that we can't use. And I was like, half the playbook. And I just have to wonder, like, if you're Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, guys get hurt playing football. Should you really be designing a game plan where half of it is immediately out the window if one guy gets hurt? I got to tell you, I don't think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and it's like, it's interesting though, because he's not the MVP of the offense. Like McCaffrey's the MVP of the offense. But if McCaffrey were to get hurt, you wouldn't have to throw out half the playbook. If Aiyuk were to get hurt, if Kittle were to get hurt, you wouldn't have to. But that's because Deebo doesn't really play a traditional position, right? He's so unique, and the Niners love that. That's what they value in him. So there's no other one like him. There's no backup for Deebo Samuel, right? If he goes down, it's two or three players. So in that sense, I understand it. He's so unique.
That's a good point. Like it's so much of the playbook because he has so many different roles. And we should point out the 49ers were in position to win that game, and Jake Moody missed the game-winning field goal. So, like, even without Deebo, against one of the league's best defenses, at least when they were at home, the Niners were still in a position to win the game. They lost the game. But I just thought that was like, damn, like you shouldn't have a game plan where one player is so valuable. I get that Deebo does a lot, but you have to have sort of a backup plan. You just have to, because it's football and guys get hurt.
It was funny too, is I felt like Ray McLeod was supposed to be the Deebo backup. And when they actually had the confidence to put him in that role and like give him an end around or some gadget play, I always felt he was really good at it. But it seemed like Kyle had no confidence and lost confidence as time went on in Ray McLeod. And that culminated in the special teams gaffe in the Super Bowl. But on offense, I think it's important to have a Deebo backup or try to find one for this exact reason. And I mean, I don't know, maybe they feel like Isaac Guerendo can do some of that stuff, but he's not a wide receiver. So I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see how they use Guerendo, but I was just like, damn, with half the playbook, that is like, look at the Packers game, right? Deebo went down in the Packers playoff game and the 49ers found a way to get it done. Was it pretty? No. But and maybe they learned. I don't know, maybe the Cleveland game was sort of a wake-up call, but like you have to be able to, especially with someone with Deebo's injury history, who plays so physical, who is going to get banged up, you got to assume at some point he is going to get hurt, and you got to be able to plan for that and account for that.
Yeah, what's interesting too is like Brandon, the wide receiver who wants an extension, is sort of calling himself the best, the true number one receiver on the team and the best true receiver on the team, implying that Deebo's less than. And he's not a true wide receiver. He can't beat man-to-man coverage, but whatever he does, you can look up the numbers, stats. I heard this from Nick Wagner with ESPN, that the Niners are almost a yard per play better with Deebo on the field than with him off the field. that whatever he's giving to the offense is that valuable and that unique.
I think it is just because they can use him in so many ways. He affects everything just by moving him around in the field. He has to because he's so versatile. You have to plan for him to get the ball out of the backfield. You have to plan for him to catch the ball. So, yeah, it's just one less thing to worry about, a major thing less to worry about with Deebo off the field. And then further in the show, they go into the treatment for the injury. And he's at his house. And we never see this, so we don't think of it. But he's at his house and he's laid out on the table and he's got a woman and she's working on his shoulder. And she's kind of like pressing down, like right on the shoulder. And he's like, she says, on a level of 1 to 10, 10 being I just chopped off your arm, what's the level of pain? And Deebo goes, 10. And she goes, this is so good for you, though. And he just looks at her and he goes, is it?
Can I say something about Deebo real quick? And I say this as someone with zero pain tolerance. I play golf and I didn't play contact sports like this. Of all the football players, he seems like he has a lower pain tolerance because there's moments where it's like, oh my God, Deebo just suffered a career-ending injury. Like he's down and then he's back in like the next quarter. It's like, oh, cool. Deebo's back. He's a tough guy. I just feel like he gets a little like, which I would too, but he's really tough. He comes back.
There are some things though. I don't know. It's weird. Like if you stub your toe, you're like, oh my God, this is the worst pain ever.
If you step on a Lego, it's so bad.
But then it goes away completely in like 5 minutes and you're totally fine. But in that moment when it happens, you're like, this is the worst thing anyone has ever suffered.
When you're watching the show, are you thinking like, this is why I didn't play football and why my kids won't play football? Like, are you kidding me?
People don't realize how much of these players' lives are just pain, just straight up pain. Andrew Luck talked about it, how he felt like he was locked in this cycle of playing, getting hurt, rehabbing, and through all 2/3 of that is pain and just in it over and over. And just when you get healthy and just when that pain goes away, you get another injury and you got to go back out and do it. Like, I totally get why Andrew Luck was like, I'm out. Forget this.
Yeah. That's why when people say like they love football, it's like, do you really? And if you do, like, man, you should play it because not that many people do, man. That's a rough one.
Yeah, it's really, really bad. The other hilarious thing was when George Kittle got hit in the junk against the Vikings. He immediately yells at Harrison. What the heck's his name? The safety for the Vikings. I can't think of it. Harrison Smith. Dude, you hit me right in the junk, except he doesn't say junk. And then he proceeds to tell every single player on the 49ers sideline exactly where he got hurt, exactly why it hurt. It was just hilarious to see George, but that's George being George.
He always has to like tell he something happens and he thinks it's funny and he tells it to every person one at a time. Like remember in the NFC Championship game, they came back and he was like, man, on the sideline, I said in the first half, they really had us. It's like, you said that over and over and over and over again. He's funny.
He's not that funny. It reminds me of my 4-year-old daughter who, if she gets a laugh, she'll keep saying the thing over and over and over. Like she doesn't get that, like the more times you say it, the less funny it is. Kind of reminds me of that.
Something just popped into my head. I haven't watched this yet, but think about it, right? Like what has this offseason been dominated by? 49ers, wise. The wide receiver, not named Deebo. Deebo's in a show called Receiver, okay? This is the Netflix show that like transcends certain players beyond just football player. Like now you're a character. Now you're a celebrity. And they go to the Niners and they go to Deebo and Kittle. Hilarious. You think BA didn't want to be on this show? I mean, he's got a TikTok. He's on the pivot. Like, I bet you that pissed him off too. Like, oh, I didn't make the cut. And so this has been the summer of BA, but now that's over and it's Deebo and Kittle time. I think it's very interesting.
Well, if you remember the pivot, listen to Brandon Aiyuk on the pivot.
I'm having fun. I felt like for the past 4 years, I kind of, took a back seat to this guy or whatever, and kind of just did what I had to do. And now I'm in a position that when I wake up in the morning, turn on the TV, they talking about me. I get on my phone, they talking about me. My mom calling me, they talking about me at work, whatever. So I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the process. I know at the end of the day, this is the time for me, this time period right now before the season starts. And to get paid and to maximize my value and continue to show who I am as a player. But right now, it's about one thing.
So
that's the most revealing part of that interview. Like, that is Brandon Aiyuk at 26 years old. That's him.
He likes that people are talking about him. He likes the fame, and I get it. Like, he's never the first person you talk about with the 49ers. So that's why
Netflix was like, yeah, we're going to go with Kittle and Deebo. Sorry, I mean, we don't really know you that well. You don't really talk very much. It's like,
we don't need 3 49ers guys.
Yeah. And so you're like the least interesting of them. Is he, though? Like, all of a sudden, he seems like the most interesting of them. But anyway, the fact that it pissed him off is kind of amusing to me. Like, let it fuel you, BA.
He's not interesting. He's not. Like,
he's not. He's the youngest.
Good.
He's kind of the most shallow at this time, maybe the least mature, which is fine. He's the youngest. But yeah, I'd rather watch Deebo and Kittle. Sorry.
And now all we're talking about is Deebo and Kittle all over again. But I think that's why he's posting Commanders, like a practice shot picture of the Commander. Like, he likes it. He likes the juice, which, whatever, man, do you. I get that he hasn't gotten the attention of the other 49ers, and he hasn't. And hopefully, he'll get this.
He's like in a boy band, right? Boy bands are always 4 guys. And he's like the least famous of the guys. And he's not Justin Timberlake or JC Chazé. He's someone else, although there were 5 in NSYNC. But anyway, I'm thinking 98 Degrees. And he wants to go solo. And everyone's like, you sure about that? You sure about that? Is that what you want? You want to go to Washington and sell no copies of your album? Go triple aluminum in Washington? Is that what you want to do?
Washington, where everyone's career has thrived, the second they got there.
You really want to sign with that label? Go ahead.
But look, this could just be a thing where he's enjoying getting talked about. He likes having his name in the news. Eventually,
he knew receiver was coming on the end of the off season and wanted to preempt that because it's Deebo time now.
And he could get his deal and all could be well. Like, it doesn't mean it's the end of days here. But yeah, he flat out said he likes being in the news. He likes being talked about. And
also, it's like, you play for the 49ers. You saw Deebo's process, Kittle's process. Like, the Niners finalize these things in August or September. Why are you really that upset that it's not done in April or May? Like, you knew what's going to happen. Deebo called you and told you what's going to happen. You've seen it. We know it. And then you sit on the pivot and you're like, man, I love this. I'm having a great time. It's like, I thought you were upset. What are you talking about?
This is a comment. Eric in the chat says, I like my football players be boring and fall on fumbles. I don't need comedy when there's loose footballs rolling around.
Yeah, that's not funny.
The fumble
that's
in the
not
Super Bowl.
funny.
The ball was behind George Kittle. If George Kittle says nothing to the defender, he still doesn't get that fumble. He can't see it. He doesn't know that the ball is.
He could have blocked the defender instead of standing up and thinking the play was over.
I mean, Jesus, what are we doing?
I'm not saying I would have done better, but like, there's a reason why they say like play to the whistle and all that stuff. And like, George knows better. He's that guy who plays to the whistle.
Right.
That's why everyone was like, huh?
I think
Super Bowl.
People are just acting, but that's who George is. It's the same guy. He does play to the whistle. He thought the play was over. The ball was to his back. The defender is going to see the football before George Kittle. Even if George Kittle is blocking him, he's still not going to know that the football is there. Like,
all right. Well, he's never going to live that down, but you can help. You can help the PR spin. Like, that was bad. Super Bowl, you lost. Moments like that, man.
What's he supposed to do?
It's almost worse than the fumble because it's like fumbles happen. You understand, like you can't be a running back and never fumble, but you can be a tight end and never say hi, George, to another player before the whistle has blown. Like, you can do that. That's within your power for sure.
So you just want him to say, if he doesn't say hi, George, you're totally fine with it?
It'd be better if you like kept blocking.
I mean,
and it's like, I know he can, I know he has, he's a great player. Like that. What a weird time and place to do that thing. Didn't work out.
That is ridiculous to blame George Kittle in that spot. It makes no sense to me. Like, I get we're mad that we didn't get the fumble.
Blaming is sort of like a heavy-handed verb to choose right there. I just said like he shouldn't have said hi, George, in that moment, and it didn't help. And it was a bad moment, and everyone knows it, and he's never going to live it down.
What did it hurt?
It didn't help the process. He could have blocked the guy who covered the fumbles, period.
There are other, like, he still doesn't get the fumble back.
Karlaftis got the ball. George was supposed to block him. Instead, he saluted him. He said hello, which was nice. I mean, it's very polite. to acknowledge someone like that.
He
But
didn't know the ball was fumbled, though. That's the point.
well, that's why you play to the whistle. I mean, that's why you don't do that.
He was between his man and where he thought the ball was.
Well, if you thought that was cute and innocuous, then that's cool. I'm not going to change your mind. We don't have to debate that play anymore. That was months ago. I think most people feel it was bad, but we don't have to take a poll.
I think
we don't have to win this one.
Most people are being irrational, is what I would say.
Well, you're never emotional, man. You're always cold and rational. I like that about you.
100% rational.
100% rational. I love that.
I mean, yeah, I don't think
emotions.
Anything else about
me.
I rarely ever get emotional on the show, with you.
That's what I love about you. And what I hate.
Some people are complaining that I'm spoiling the show for you of receiver. I apologize. But I just
spoiler, Deebo gets hurt against the Browns, leaves the game. Crazy. It's amazing.
I have observations. That's all. At one point, Brock turns to Deebo after Deebo breaks. There's that play against the Giants where he breaks like 4 tackles, and he's sitting next to Brock on the bench. And Brock just looks at him and he's like, "Dude, how do you do that?" He goes, he actually says, "This isn't high school. Like, and dudes are bouncing off of you." And Deebo's like,
It's always been that way. That's the thing with Deebo. I've never seen a player, a wide receiver, whom defensive backs just do not want to tackle. Like, there's no defensive back who's like, "Oh yeah, 1-on-1, me and Deebo in the open field, I got him." Like, no, you're terrified. Terrified.
The weird thing for me is like the Niners are full of people who look at each other and they're like, "How do you do that?" Remember when Bosa was in the locker room talking with Brock Purdy and he's like, "How are you doing this?" And Brock Purdy's like, "Hey, I think I can be better." It's weird to me that the Niners have all these guys where other players on the team who are, at their level in the NFL are looking at them and they're like, "How the hell did you do that?" Kind of surprised me.
Have I told you the story before? I was sitting next to Tom Rathman in the press box when the Niners were playing the Cowboys in the playoffs at home a couple of years ago. And I just got to hear his stream of consciousness. And anytime Deebo got the ball, he was just like, "Wow, he's so good. He's like Hercules out there." I'm like, man, if Tom Rathman is has that kind of reaction to any professional player, I gotta take that, that's serious. I mean, he played, he knows, and he was that guy. He was freaking Hercules out there at one time. So yeah, Deebo is that guy.
He was a beast. And not only that, he coached on the 49ers forever after that too. So he's seen some dudes in his time in football, and Deebo still makes
Frank Gore.
Yeah. Still makes you kind of stand up and be like, "Holy hell, I can't believe this." The other thing
he also got me too. He was like, "Hey, I know you. When I stopped coaching here and they gave the job to Bobby Turner, you wrote that that was a good move because I don't know zone blocking. You said that." I was like, "I did write that, didn't I?" He's like, "Yeah, I've coached zone blocking before." I was like, "I'm so sorry, Tom. No, it's okay. It's in the paper. You can't take it back, but no, it's okay." And I was like, "Oh my God." And then he was nice to me the rest of the night. I was like, "Man, I'm such an asshole. I'm so sorry, Tom."
That's interesting.
See, no, you did that. But I'm going to forgive you and we'll have a good time. I'm like, "Oh."
They all read everything.
They do.
Say, "Oh, I don't pay attention." Bull crap.
And when that was happening, when he was sticking it to me, but then letting me off the hook, Dante Whitner was right next to us, giggling like he got you. And you're freaking embarrassed, aren't you? Yes, I'm freaking embarrassed. Yes. Sorry, Tom.
So then, okay, I have to ask, what made you write that about Rathman?
Because I had to write an article that day and it seemed like a good line. I knew that Bobby Turner was the outside zone OG. And I know that Rathman had done, there wasn't much out zone blocking when he was a player, and Harbaugh didn't do a lot of that either, but he reminded me that there were other coaches that he coached for. And he was like, "I'm well-versed in zone blocking." And I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense. You're a running back coach in the NFL. I don't know why I thought you didn't know about that." So I must have wrote that in 2017. You can probably find it online.
Considering Tom Rathman and his history, that's probably you got off easy. That's the nicest thing he could have done to you.
He was a complete gentleman about it, but he wanted me to know that he knew, which was so gangster. "Hey, remember that thing you wrote about me 7 years ago?" "Yeah, I didn't fucking forget, but it's cool. It's cool. We're good." I was like, "Oh, damn." Yeah.
That was the first interaction you'd ever had with him?
No, I'd like interviewed him when I was in my mid-20s when he was the running back coach. I remember interviewing him about blitz pickups one time, like who was supposed to kind of stuff that happened in the Super Bowl. But anyway, that was just him. I don't know, was he might have been working for NBC that day. He had a seat in the press box and it was cool. I've also sat next to Patrick Willis. He might have been next to me at that might have been the same game. He's very interesting. And then Dante Whitner has a ton to say. You hear it. You hear him on television. He's a good analyst.
Yeah, I wish he was still at NBCSN, actually.
Yeah. He's gone. What is he doing now? Big Ten?
I don't know. They had Staley and Hittner at one point. Like, damn. How
do you lose Staley? Staley would be.
Joe didn't want to do it anymore.
Oh. Yeah, he has a lot of money. He doesn't have to do it. And it's a lot of work.
I think he's eventually going to get into like coaching or that side of it. I think that's what he wants to do, but he didn't want to do it.
And you can't work full time for NBC Sports Bay Area and not live in the Bay Area. Like he lives in San Diego and loves it. So
how could you not? Does anyone live in San Diego and not love it? Are there people in San Diego like, I got to get out of here. This perfect weather every day is killing me.
No, people love it. That's why they go. No,
exactly. The other thing that surprised me is there are like separate specific sit downs with Brock and Kyle, and Brock, I don't think cares, but like Kyle hates the media. He hates doing it. He has talked about how much they would never want to do Hard Knocks, how like they are not interested in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So to see, I don't know how the hell they got Kyle to do it, but like there aren't a lot of them, to be fair. Maybe he only did one and they're showing bits and pieces, but like there are separate sit down interviews where he's like in one of the rooms at the Niners facility just talking to the Netflix crew.
That's really interesting. I mean, seems like Deebo would be down to do Hard Knocks. Seems like Kittle would be down to do Hard Knocks. Seems like the wide receiver number 11 would be down. Christian McCaffrey probably wouldn't be opposed. I mean, this Niners team isn't exactly shy. You know, it's Kyle who seems opposed, and why? I wonder. Like, what is it? Get inside the mind of Kyle right now. What's so bad about it? Why is he not into it?
Because I think he just hates the media. He hates the cameras. He wants people focused on football rather than focused on talking to whoever might happen to be in the facility that day.
That's true. That's true. It's not like he's very loquacious or charismatic. It's not like being on Hard Knocks would do much for him.
John V says, win a Super Bowl and you can join Oprah for all he cares. I don't think Oprah has a show anymore, does she? It's kind of a dated reference, but anyway. I think that Kyle doesn't like the media because he says what he says to get through it. And in his mind, it's like, okay, I've done that. It's out of my mind, whatever. But then we remember what he says and we bring stuff back up. And he's like, you're calling me on this stuff when in reality, I'm just saying what I need to say to get through this media interview. And so the more media he does, the more stuff we have to call him out on or just refer back to and say, hey, this is different than what you said before. Can you clarify for us? And I think he hates it.
What's funny about Kyle is, to me, I think he's great with the media. Like if you ask him a question that isn't like, hey, why'd you lose the Super Bowl or why'd you do something bad? He'll give you a really long answer, and it may not be like grammatically correct, but you'll learn a lot about football. He will try his best to really answer as best as he can to give insight into an issue. I appreciate that. Harbaugh, when he was a coach, every answer was like, screw you. Figure it out. And it was funny, but at the same time, it wasn't helpful. Kyle is helpful. He just, I mean, I don't think it's ever going to happen for him, but he would become much more endearing if he could just sort of like brush off critical questions with some charm the way most coaches can, you know?
He doesn't like when you question him or question his decision-making. That's when he really gets prickly. If you're just asking about football, you're kind of in a way like acknowledging his superior football.
Correct.
Which, to be clear, he has forgotten more about football than I will ever know in 3 lifetimes. I mean, he has literally grown up in the game. But even if, I think that's where most coaches go off the rails a little bit. I don't think they realize that. Now, there are some fans that think they know better, but I think for the most part, fans just want to understand. They want to understand why you've done the things you've done. They want to understand, have you considered other options that might seem obvious to us? And if so, and you haven't gone with those, tell us why. At least explain what you're thinking. And I think a lot of coaches, and I think Kyle is like this, takes that as criticism or feels, criticized or attacked. And so they get prickly, they get snarky. And it really, I think for most people, it's like, hey, we just want to understand why you did what you did or didn't do.
Yeah, but there's more. I mean, he likes to be in the position where he's teaching, where he knows more and you're interested and, hey, what did you see? And to explain this. And he's very generous in that sense. But that's not the only role of the media. Like, people, it. Journalists who only ask those kind of questions eventually annoy you, Rob. And they annoy me too. It's like, you're not just here to be a stenographer and chronicle history. You also have to keep them accountable, even though you don't know as much about this subject as they do. It's your job to do enough homework and learn enough that you can ask the pertinent questions. And it's not always, well, what'd you see from your quarterback today?
Tell us about Brock at his first mini camp prep. Like,
you sometimes have to have the courage to ask a question he doesn't like. And you know what those questions are.
And too often they don't get asked. Like, I'm still amazed to this day, not a single person has asked whether or not the veterans asked him to take Trey Lance off the field. Like, that has never been asked. That is a massive, massive story. No, we're never going to ask him about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
and
all
it's like the way Kyle acts is like, if I answer the questions I like a certain way, bunch of information, smile, and I answer the questions I don't like a certain way, bite your head off. 9 out of 10 journalists won't do this one anymore because they don't want the smoke. Only one who will is Crazy Grant. I don't know what his problem is. He's nuts. What is his deal? But everyone else, I mean, yeah, they're freaking, I know what they're going to do.
I don't like when you know what the questions are going to be or what the response to a 49ers decision is going to be before it even happens. That is not journalism to me. That is not helping me as a fan. It's just not. And
that's what I like about you a lot. Like, you're a diehard fan of all the people that I stream with. Like, you're like the most fanish, but you're also like really into the right questions. And you get upset when people don't do journalism. I really respect that.
No, thank you. Yes, I do. Like, when I was at ESPN, there's a whole day class that they used to put you through. It's like 8 hours just on interviewing. What makes a good interview? What makes a bad interview?
Love it.
How to structure your questions. It was unbelievable. And I got to tell you.
Yeah, that's the thing about you too. Like, you're the biggest fan, but you've been in the industry for a long time. You're a pro.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not blow my own horn, but I've been in the friggin' industry for 15 years, like from all aspects of it, behind the scenes, now in front of the camera. Like, so I do have an opinion on how the job should be done.
Yeah.
And I try.
One thing you can't get down though is a stand for your microphone that does it jiggle around every 15 seconds.
You know what it is? It's like your seat in your car. If somebody moves your seat in your car and then you feel like you can never get it back to how you had, that's exactly how I am with the microphone. Constantly.
I want to just like cut up all the times you do it and just have like a rapid fire.
Yep.
It kills me. Sorry.
It's also it's a thing. Like,
it's a thing. Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, I do think that for the most part, people are not good at asking questions. And I don't think they realize how much the way they ask a question influences how that question is going to be answered.
Correct. Yeah, there's a lot of bad questions. People say there's no bad questions. There are almost only bad questions. You got to work hard to ask a good one, man. It shouldn't be too long. You know those, like, that one guy that asks really long questions, like, it's almost like a shtick. It's like, man, can you find a way to ask this in like 10 words or less? Because it's not about you. And it's I don't know. That's how I feel.
Infuriating, because
come on, man.
When the question starts, I don't think Eric knows where the question's going to end. I think he talks his way into an eventual question.
I think he knows exactly where he's going. It just feels like a shtick. Like, this is how I do it. It's like, nah. That's not how anyone should do it. Just ask the question directly in 10 words or less, if you can.
John V. Stats, I recognize your voice from ESPN Radio multiple times until I could put a face to voice. Salute. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Yeah. Got to host on ESPN Radio Friday, Saturday, and Sunday last week. Always get my reps in during the summer. You know, sometimes the 49ers content creation doesn't pay all the bills. So we got to do different things.
You got to have as many revenue streams as you can, baby.
There you go. I got to get that passive income. That's what
you know what I just realized? I have a lot of baseball cards just chilling at my dad's house in my old just like 25-year-old baseball cards. And I'm like thinking, hey, maybe I got a social media following. Maybe someone wants some Bonds cards or some Sosa's. Probably not Sosa at this point, but there's some McGuire's, maybe not McGuire's either at this point. A lot of those guys are disgraced, but we'll see what I got.
Those cards could still be worth something.
They might. Sure. It seems like people don't care about steroids anymore, so maybe the value's back up.
And the cards are the cards. Whether they
cards are the cards. They're in great condition.
There you go. You should definitely go through those. I
should. Yeah.
Tyler says Rob's head looks like one of those mighty beans. I don't know what a mighty bean is. I do have an oval shaped head though.
It's a good shaped head. Someone's asking, are my questions pre-screened? No. What happens is
I understand
Kyle walks.
It's just not. What is that?
Kyle walks from his office to the podium, and there's the PR director, Corey, walks with him. And I think there's all right, they're probably going to ask you this. Probably going to ask you this. If they ask you this, here's something you can say, that kind of stuff. It's sort of Corey's job to prepare him for the tougher questions, or maybe Grant might ask this. Grant might ask that kind of stuff. So it's always fun to like come out of left field with something they're not prepared for.
And by the way, that's Corey's job.
For sure.
The PR, like communications is part of his job. It's his job to say like, hey, Kyle, this is the stuff that's out there that Kyle may not have seen, but he knows he's going to get asked a question about. So I have no problem with that.
Yeah, like Brandon and Aiyuk posted something on TikTok. You may not know it, but they do, and they're going to ask you. So here's what you can say, as opposed to being like, I don't know.
And I think Kyle would prefer if maybe Corey didn't do that, so then he could just say, I don't know. But what you don't want if you're Corey is you don't want Kyle to get asked about something, get caught off guard, and then maybe say something that makes the situation worse. Or
right. Because you want Kyle to be fully prepared and abreast of everything. And that's essentially what's one of Corey's duties, and he's good at it. So that's what PR directors do. The ones that make it to the NFL, like they're not just going to walk side by side, like saying nothing. Like they have things that they want to talk about.
And that's every PR person in that's your job. It's not just a 49er thing. Every other team in the NFL is doing it. Every team in every sport is doing it because you don't want your people caught off guard. It's your job to protect them when you're in that role. And it's the media's job to ask the questions anyway.
Because if it's bad, if they're caught off guard and it's real bad, like who knows, you're going to be held responsible for that. So that's something that you're in control of.
And it could be something that the way it's asked, it maybe takes something out of context. So if you're not prepared for it, then you have a reaction. It's like, well, wait, like for example, there are some quotes that if you just read them, they sound way worse than if you actually hear how they're said or see the video. But if you're unaware of the situation and somebody just reads you the quote, then all of a sudden you might have a reaction that you wouldn't normally have had if you just saw it yourself.
Right. Yeah. So it's fun to know my questions are not pre-screened, and it's fun to try to keep Kyle off balance. And I think it's fun to I sit right in the middle every time, front and center, and I stare at him, and he doesn't know when I'm going to ask my questions, but I don't ask a question at all. But he has to come in there and be like, all right, Corey prepared me the best he can, but I know that no one really knows how this weirdo thinks. And he may just, with a smile on his face in the middle of August, hit me with some stuff that I find real disrespectful. So I got to be prepared for this. So sometimes it's fun to like ask a question with like a blank face and make him think I'm going critical, but then come back to something that's not critical and just see if I can take him on an emotional roller coaster.
Is there like an order? Is it like Mayoko gets the first question, or do you just all like, how does that work?
That's a good question. It's kind of like trying to get a rebound. So it's a little bit of a contact sport, and you need to be aggressive, have a little bass in your voice and a little volume. That being said, if Maddie wants the first question, he's been covering the team for like 30 years. Everyone pretty much backs down out of respect.
Okay, so
honestly, I won't do that for anyone but Maddie. If it's Matt Barrows and me, it's a rebound. I'm grabbing that over you. Sorry. If it's Eric Branch, I'm for sure getting that rebound over you. Like, I know everyone's game. Eric doesn't have a strong voice. That's why he goes last. Barrows isn't necessarily a contact sport kind of guy. Like, if me and Larry ask a question at the same time, we both might get half a sentence in. Like, we may not want to give it up, but I know certain people who will back down. So it's almost like I've been in the same beat group for like 13 years.
Right.
And Maddie, absolutely, I defer. Cam Inman, depends how I feel that day. I like Cam a lot. I like him a lot. His son is also named Grant. Shout out to Cam.
So the thing with Mayoko though, is that something that like is discussed, or is it just kind of understood that he's sort of the senior guy because he's been there the longest?
Everyone on the beat treats Mayoko with ultimate respect. So if someone were to talk over Mayoko, it would be an outsider who didn't know, and everyone would be like, really? Excuse me. Like, you should know this beat well enough to know who he is and to know that he's the OG. He gets the first question if he wants it. He does.
Would Matt ever turn at that person and be like, dude?
No,
like,
and that's why everyone loves Matt, because he's not that kind of guy at all. So like, he doesn't ask for it. We give it to him.
I was I don't want to say caught off guard. I was frustrated, let's say, at the Super Bowl when we were all at the media sessions, and it's like the dude sits down, and then the second it's just like somebody shoots a gun, and then everybody just yells questions at them. There's no order, there's no nothing. And if you want your question answered, you basically just have to be the loudest and just keep talking, even if other people are asking questions. It was like a free-for-all.
It's so hard. It's not a lot of fun. I mean, you're just sort of shouting a question, trying to get a guy's attention, and like he's not going to think that much about it because he's going to sit there for 60 minutes and get peppered with these weird questions. It's a terrible format. And I think it's really just so the NFL can get as many media people in there as possible and say, hey, look, we're the center of the world. But this isn't exactly like functional journalism happening here. Who cares? We're celebrating ourselves this week. You know, that's pretty much what it is.
And it's day after day after day, too. And you're right. Yeah. Are they trying to give like the most interesting, insightful answers? No. People are shouting at them. They pick out a question. See, and that's another part of it that is frustrating from my perspective. If multiple people are yelling questions, the player is not going to pick the hardest question to answer or the question that might provide the most insightful answer. They're going to do the opposite. They're going to pick the easiest question to answer so they could move things along and get the hell out of there. And on day 4 of the media sessions at the Super Bowl, that's where they are by that point.
And you were there, like the way the questions are asked and the way each team is treated in the lead up to the Super Bowl, it's like both teams have already won. It's never like, so what are you seeing on film from the Chiefs? Or it's like, nah, like how are you guys the greatest team ever? Like, how did it, I mean, when you look in the eyes of your teammate, like, do you hear the Angels? I mean, it's very much like a parade of congratulations. I mean, every Brock Purdy interview for an hour every day was, man, when you were 6, did you realize you were going to be this great? And what about when you were 14? Take us back to when you were 11, like that kind of stuff.
It got to the point where I wouldn't even try to get Brock's podium because there were so many people around it. And I was like, let me try and go to Juwan Jennings or Juice or somebody, because there were fewer people. So you might actually get a real question and interaction.
And like, let's say you just go to Purdy for 10 minutes and record the whole thing and then watch it back. It's the worst 10 minutes you've ever seen. I mean, there's no actual like flow. There's just a bunch of disjointed questions that have nothing to do with anything. Half of them are legitimately stupid. About like questions at the Super Bowl. Like, if you could guarantee that you're going to win the Super Bowl if you get a tattoo of Brock Purdy, his face on your ass, would you do it? And if players are like, oh, okay, how big is the tattoo though? Like, they'll actually take those questions seriously. Yeah, I'll do it. And people are like, oh, that's a good answer. That's a team. That's a winner right there.
Because then it's tap, 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 tap. George Kittle says he would get a tattoo of Brock Purdy on his ass to win a Super Bowl. That's all that is.
Pretty much.
So anyway, yeah, that was always
Aaron Banks said he would do it. I was there. He said he would do it.
That'd be a big tattoo.
He wanted to know how big the tattoo had to be first. I thought that was such a fair follow-up. I would need to know that.
He has his limits, apparently. Like, he wants to win the Super Bowl, but
yeah. Are we talking like a quarter or what?
Right.
The full cheek? Because if it's a full cheek, that's just weird. But a quarter, I mean, you could explain that to your significant other. Like, this was for the Super Bowl. They're like, oh, for sure. That's your quarterback.
But eventually it gets so big.
Nothing weird about that.
You don't want a giant one, because then he's like, look, we were already winning for 3 quarters anyway. Maybe I'll just roll the dice and see if we could finish off that quarter.
Also, it's like, Purdy's under center. He's got Banks right to his left. He's like looking at tattoo of his own face on that cheek. It's like, man, it's weird.
That would be weird. Anyway, so that was the stuff I noticed from the Netflix receiver series. I haven't finished it. I'm only like 3 episodes in. Another thing I thought, which was smart, before the Cincinnati game, Deebo is talking to, I think, Kittle, and he says, like, I could play, but they told me to wait one more week, which is interesting because the scene before, the woman that was working on his shoulder says if he pushes this thing, he could break his scapula, and then he's going to be out for a while. And if you remember, they had the Cincy game, and then they had the bye. So the Niners made him wait an extra week, so he essentially got 3 more weeks off without any more injury to the shoulder. And he, I think it helped him throughout the rest of the year. So I thought that was actually smart by the 49ers.
That's funny, though. I feel like the Niners kind of are interesting. They'll be like, hey, Deebo, take your time. Take another week. We need you. But then when it's time to renegotiate a contract or sign an extension, they're like, you missed 4 games in 2023. What the hell was that? And that's what they did to Aiyuk too. It's like, look, Brandon, we know you're great, but if you could just be okay with sort of spreading the wealth around and blocking, that would be great. And he's like, all right, I'm buying in. And then it's time to negotiate. It's like, dude, you got 75 passes last year? Are you kidding?
Yeah, and that's why they are so annoyed and frustrated, because it's two different aspects of the team. Like, the team during the season is trying to make the best decisions for the team and for the player. Like, they're all in, but the contract negotiators are separate. They are just there to use anything they can against you to pay you less. But I understand why, from the player's standpoint, it's like, you told me to sit out another game, or you designed the game plan to use me as a decoy, or whatever it is, and now you're throwing it back in my face. So I totally get the frustration.
And I love how Kyle is able to convince us and the players that he's just on the coaching side and he has nothing to do with financial front office decisions, because once players start to think that he's on that side too, he's going to be in trouble. So he needs to make sure that he's the player guy. Just a coach, want you to get paid. I don't understand what Parag's doing, man. I wish I had more power. My hands are tied here in the Niners. I really don't I just coach the team, man. You know me.
Which, everybody knows is a lie. When Trent was going to go to the Chiefs, he called Kyle.
Yeah.
The reason he called Kyle is,
hey, I'm breaking the 4th wall. I know you run the team. I want to be here longer. Make it happen.
You're not calling the guy that you don't think can get anything done. You're calling the guy you think calls the shots.
Yeah. Remember when Jimmy Ward got benched? He went to D'Amico's like, should I even talk to you or should I go to Kyle? D'Amico's like, yeah, Kyle for sure.
And what did Kyle say? Do this or you're going to be benched. Was
and I love Jimmy Ward. Such a baller. He's like, cool, bench me. You explain to Jade why you have $10 million on the bench and I'm just playing. I love special teams. I freaking love special teams. I'll be the best. I love Jimmy Ward with such a passion, great guy, and a strong dude. Like, do it, man. That's an empty threat. Go ahead, do it. Kyle's like, whoa, buddy. Wait a second. I was trying to make a point. Yeah, you were.
But what ended up happening?
He played nickel. So, and then he got paid by D'Amico. D'Amico's like, shut up. I will sign you next year. Shut up. Okay, I got you.
Well, I think D'Amico was smart, right? He used to his advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, bench him, Kyle. Yeah. Really alienate Jimmy Ward with the Niners.
That it's the nature of the business, though, where you have to sort of prepare for, D'Amico knew he was going to be a head coach. So it's only logical that he'd be like, hey, man, I know your contract's up. I'm going to be a head coach. You like the defense. I'll sign you to play safety. And
hang tight. I got you.
Jimmy Ward played 10 games at safety for the Texans last year. 1 pick, 3 forced fumbles. Or no, 3 passes defended, 1 forced fumble. Jimmy Ward just does what Jimmy Ward does.
Solid player.
Love him as a personality, though. Miss the personality.
He had, and he was like, no one knew he had it. He was very quiet. And I think he was controversial, right? He was a 1st-round pick who kept getting hurt, had a different position every year, was on bad teams. People felt he was like a bust or something. And then people finally realized, no, he's a really good player and he has this whole personality that people never cared to learn. And then he was gone. Just like that.
And as good a player as he was, I'm totally fine with him not being. There was never a time last year where I was like, I wish Jimmy Ward was on this team.
Tashawn Gibson was really good the last couple of years, and so was Hufanga.
Are they going to sign him? Are they going to sign Gibson even, after he serves the PED suspension? Because I don't know what the hell they're doing at safety.
They signed Chris Forster after he got ran out of Miami. So I feel like this, why not? But I think right now the idea is that Jair Brown and Talanoa Hufanga will hold it down. But let's say Talanoa Hufanga doesn't. Then Gibson would be the probably the first call.
Man, and Gibson's statement was it's so bogus. Oh, I only took something one time. I had no idea. Dude.
What are you supposed to say? Yeah, they finally caught me. I've been doing this for years, man, and it's a big reason why I've been so successful, and I'm going to get back on it as soon as I can, but what are you going to do?
I would have more respect if he was like, you know what? I was at the end of my career. I had nothing to lose because nobody else wanted me anyway. So
I'm going out like that. Like, no, I'm trying to get back in the league. I don't know what happened. It was a one-time mistake. It'll never happen again.
Or if he's just like, I wanted to get back in the league, get a couple more paychecks. I know I'm at the end of my career. If I got caught, oh well. I had nothing to lose anyway. Like, I would have respected a lot.
He would have been the first athlete ever to say that. But yeah, it would be kind of funny. It's almost like a Key and it's so honest. It's almost like a Key and Peele speech.
Right.
Skit.
But so what, man? Like, you don't get penalized anymore if you say that. And like, no one believes this stupid. There's never an excuse to get caught for PEDs in the NFL. Every substance you can bring to the league and say, test this. Does it have anything in it that's illegal? And they will do it before you ever put it into your body. So there's no excuse like, oh, I had no idea that it contained it. Doesn't matter, dude. Like, you can avoid this.
Would have been a really funny statement from Gibson on this, like a better statement. Oops.
Right? That would have been great.
Just leave it at that. Like, oops. Like, we know what you were trying to do. You're trying to get bigger, faster, stronger. You messed up. No one's really mad. Like in baseball, if you take PEDs in baseball, it's like you are desecrating the game and the records. All of a sudden, 1955 doesn't matter anymore. But like in football, it's like we just want the biggest, fastest, strongest players ever. Like, otherwise, it's just boring to me. So whatever you got to do, don't break a rule, but be bigger, faster, stronger. And yeah, it's like people don't care.
When the Panthers got to the Super Bowl with Jake Delhomme, the entire offensive line was doing steroids.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
It came out afterwards. Like,
wow.
The whole offensive line. And they were such
what a shock.
Yeah. So anyway.
All right. We need to stop this conversation before it turns towards the current 49ers team. And we start saying, what's our wild, irresponsible speculation? We're not going to do that here.
We're not going to do that.
We're not going to do that here.
No, we are not.
Nope.
All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the show.
Oh, just in time.
And follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Make sure you like and subscribe to Grant Cohn's YouTube channel. Tons of good stuff on there. I know you got 49ers After Dark today, but no Jesse Naylor.
That's true. It's going to be Ryan G. Hensley subbing in for Jesse Naylor. I'm bringing in the right-hander out of the bullpen.
Ryan Hensley, controversial 49ers content creator, and some beef. Ryan has some beefs on Twitter, I feel like.
Don't we all? Ain't that life?
Very true. All right.
I got beef with you, and we'll talk about it next week.